All right, so welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm so glad you're here. I am Leia, and this is my channel where we talk about all things faith, fitness, and everything in between. And today I just wanted to kind of go into my testimony or my story, if you will, of how faith pretty much changed my fitness journey. So I was always into working out and I was always into lifting weights, right? And in fact, I got into lifting weights when I was a sophomore in high school. And primarily my main goal for most of like my beginning fitness journey pre-Jesus was to grow my glutes, right? I'm just going to be completely transparent. I just wanted a big booty. I grew up very petite. I was always like the small one. I'm barely over 5 feet. And I was just always like this petite little thing, right? And I just feel like I wanted to take up more space in the world. And I didn't feel super confident in my own skin. I felt very weak. I felt very small. I felt like I would walk into rooms full of people and just shrink, right? And maybe you're watching this and you're like, girl, that's not my story, right? Maybe you find yourself on the other side of the weight spectrum. Instead of wanting to take up space and become bigger and put on muscle, right? You always wanted to shrink or be smaller. And not to say that one is better than the other, right? At the end of the day, wherever you find yourself on the weight spectrum, the desire for all of us is the same, to feel comfortable in our own skin and to live confident, bold lives, right? Ultimately, that's what I wanted. That's what I was after. And I bet if you really dig down deep of why you want to change your body, that's really the ultimate goal, right? Is to just live confident in your own skin and feel comfortable in your own skin. And that's it. Fast forward to October 2023. That's when I got saved. Or sorry, October 2013 is when I got saved, meaning that's when I met Jesus and began to start my relationship with him. And that is important because it was only 6 months later that that fitness became my profession. So mind you, up until that point, I had spent 23 years growing up Catholic, but I never knew Jesus. You know what I mean? Like, this is the point in my life that was so pivotal because this is when I really began to just start a relationship with him and begin to know who Jesus really is. So fast forward, like I said, 6 months later, April 2014 is when I got my first personal training job. And this is also monumental because, again, I'm newly saved, I'm beginning my new relationship with Jesus. But at the time when I got this job, I actually was not qualified for it. Meaning I did not have the proper credentials. I was not certified as a personal trainer. I knew how to work out. I was familiar with working out. I put other people through workouts at this point, like friends and family. But I didn't really know how to do that by the book, so to speak. And at the time I was, interviewing for other jobs. This was kind of near around when I had, recently graduated. I had a job that I started like my junior year of college. And so I was finishing that job post graduation. And so this is the first time I was really kind of out in the career field and really looking for, okay, what is going to be my career, post college. And I was interviewing for a lot of jobs that I was qualified for, a lot of them being corporate sales, right? And I had a lot of experience. I did really well in corporate sales throughout college and even post college. But for some reason, I didn't get any of those jobs that I was highly qualified for. Like, on paper, like, I was qualified for these jobs, right? But for some reason, God allowed me to get this job that I was the least qualified for. And this was kind of the moment that I really began to understand, like, God truly qualifies the called and not the other way around. And, being a baby Christian, we all are going to be in different parts of our walk and our journey with Jesus. At this time in my life, I was a baby Christian. I was new to my faith, new to relationship with Jesus. And at that time, being an infant in my relationship with Jesus, God really needed to make it super, super, super clear to me of which door he wanted me to walk through. Right. And so he shut every door that I was quote unquote qualified for and allowed me to walk through a door that the only door that was open was for a job that I was not qualified for. I want us to really sit on that. Why would God allow me to get a job that I was the least qualified for? Like, why would he do that? In Proverbs 3:5-7, it says to trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him and he will direct your path. And for me, this was kind of like the point in my life where this started to really become my life verse, right? Because nothing around me was making sense, right? The job that I got, yes, I applied for it. Yes, I went through the interview and all of that. Again, I didn't really think I was going to get it. But this was the only job out of all the jobs that I was applying for that God was literally pushing me through the door. Like, this is the job that I have for you. This is the door that I'm calling you to walk through. This is where I have you. And so it didn't make sense to me, but I was like, okay, Lord, this is very clear that this is from you, because how else, where else would it come from if I'm getting this job that I'm not qualified for and I have this unmerited favor, so to speak, to get this job? Again, not having any experience other than the fact that fitness was something I'm very, very, very passionate about. And little did I know that God wanted to turn that passion and use it for his glory, right? He didn't want me to become, a corporate sales girly. He was calling me to fitness. And that is, to me, that just blows my mind, because yes, again, I knew how to work out. I didn't know how to work out people. Like, again, the verse says to lean on him and lean not on your own understanding. I had no other choice but to lean on him, because I was like, okay, God, this is the job that you're calling me to. Yes, I'm going to have to go through the process and get certified and learn by the books and all of that. But in the meantime, you really have to show me how to do this job, because I don't know how to do it. Right? I literally didn't know how to do the job. So now fast forward, we're like, now today, we're about 11 years since then. So over a decade, which is crazy. Since accepting that job, right, I've learned so much. I received a lot of accolades, recognition. I've trained hundreds and hundreds of people, helped hundreds and hundreds of people change and transform their lives, right? And eventually learned how to train people very, 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 very well. But above all that, my passion for fitness was something that, again, God really wanted to turn around and use for his glory, to use for a kingdom purpose. And I honestly know that it's not by any accident. It's very, very on purpose that God allowed my faith journey to really coincide with my fitness journey, because the way that God moved in my life when I got that job, he really used the gym and fitness, and something that at the time, and still in a lot of ways can be very worldly, very secular. And I feel like a lot of Christians today kind of still will turn their backs to it, because can be so secular and so vain, or whatever you want to call it. And for some reason, we kind of, as a church as a whole, we kind of neglect the physical body that God has given us. And but that wasn't my journey. God really wanted to use that time to kind of break the mold and break the misconceptions and the misunderstandings of what it means to work out, especially as a Christian. God really allowed me to hear from him through my own workout sessions. When I'm training clients, I'm hearing God, tell me like how to train this client, what to do next. I mean, okay, I went in with help. I had help from a manager. I was still doing my due diligence, right? But it was really cool to see God really partner with me and show me what it means to be in a real relationship with him very, very early on in my walk. And he used my fitness career as a means for me to do that, as a means for me to grow in my relationship with him and to grow in my faith. So remember when I initially said I, lifted weights and was working out for mostly aesthetic reasons, right? And God really began to shift that, began to really change my perspective around working out and what it really looks like to honor my body, honor the vessel that he's given me through fitness, and not just use it as a means to, obtain this like physical goal, or obtain this, more aesthetic goal. So over time, he did allow me to transform my body. I built out the curves that, I was always hoping for. I learned how to put on muscle and size. My glutes and really all over, right? And so at this point, I think it was about a year and a half into my professional fitness career that I had, so to speak, built this dream body. And I had this dream job, right? Personal training, and I loved it. And God was like, that's great, but now let's go deeper, right? Now let's really address why I called you here. Let's really go into basically the nitty gritty, right? And so at that time, I was at a church, and it was an amazing church. People on fire for God, operating things of the Spirit. It was amazing. Worship was amazing. People knew how to pray. People know how to go deep with God. But working out and lifting weights was not a concept that was familiar for them. And at the time, it wasn't part of their lifestyle. And even looking at some of their eating habits, it was very, very unhealthy, to be blunt. And I began to really feel really sad. And I felt like God was really breaking my heart at that moment, because that wasn't his will for his people, right? To live, spiritually strong lives, but then neglect the physical vessel that he has given us. God wasn't and still isn't calling us to live that kind of life. So he began to stir up this new passion in me, for faith and fitness to coincide. And while it was also my personal journey, my personal story, it's also, I feel like, my life mission that God has given me. And now my passion that he began to stir up at that point and still is today is to help people live healthy lives, not just spiritually, but physically too. Because if you think about it, right, I would say it's fair to say that you want all that God has for you, right? In this life, on this side of heaven, right? Before we even get to heaven, God has a specific calling and he has blessings and purpose that he wants to give us in our lives, right? But how are we ever going to live out the fullness of that if we don't have healthy bodies, right? If we're not taking care of our physical vessels, how are we ever going to step into all that God has for us? Let's turn to scripture. So in Corinthians 6:19-20, it says, "Don't you know that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit who is in you, whom you have from God? You are not your own, for you were bought with a price, so glorify God with your body." And a lot of times when we talk about glorifying God with our body, right, it is very much attached to purity and, quite frankly, saving sex for marriage and all the sex talk and all of that, right? But I believe that God also intended for us to look at honoring our body even beyond just the sexual part, right? And saving ourselves for marriage. It's honoring our body in every way, what we put into it, how we move it, how we rest it, right? How we just simply take care of it. Because when we optimize this physical body that God has given us, there's a response, right? Yes, we get better energy, we have better clarity, we operate better, we're in better moods, right? Our body looks fit and it's strong physically. Why would God design us that way? Why would he give us bodies that respond well to working out and to eating healthy if he didn't call us to live that way, right? But so often, for whatever reason, in the church, we neglect that part, right? We don't talk about fitness and health and the importance of taking care of your health with diet and training, physical training, as we do. We love to talk about every other thing, right? About honoring a body with purity and sexual morality and all of this stuff, and we don't really highlight nearly as much just the physical health thing than what it really means to take care of our bodies. And just because our bodies are passing away, right, we're not going to have these physical shells when we get to heaven. That doesn't mean we need to, or that we should neglect it while we're here on earth. Like, God has designed us purposely and intentionally, and the way that he's given us these physical bodies is for a reason. Our body, your body, my body is the physical shell for the Holy Spirit to dwell in. And if we want to really hear from God and live out the life that he's called us to live and to receive everything that he has for us, why wouldn't we optimize the home that his spirit dwells in? Why wouldn't we optimize our physical body, the one vehicle that we have to do all the other things to do and to live out our God-given calling? So in today's society, of course, it's very vanity focused, it's very aesthetic focused, but as Christians, as followers of Jesus, God has called fitness, right? It is the outward result of the inward work that we're doing to honor his spirit within our body, right? Through physical means, through working out, through eating healthy, and that honestly transforms our lives and really helps us to level up in living out the life that God has given us. So wherever you are in your fitness journey, I just want to encourage you. That is my story. That is my testimony. Obviously, that is what I'm very, very passionate about. But wherever you may find yourself struggling in your fitness journey, I really want to encourage you to really invite God. Even take a moment right now, turn off this video, pray and ask God to help you in those areas you're struggling, and ask him to help you keep him in the center of all things, including your health and fitness journey, because he cares so deeply about that, about your health and fitness journey. It's not a small thing. It's not something that you were meant to do on your own, separate from God and his spirit. It is something that very much is in alignment with his spirit, because again, this is where his spirit dwells. So that's all I have for you today. I'll see you in my next video. And in the meantime, go and be blessed.